Welcome back, everyone. We're talking to the legend Barry Blake of Sedans, NASCAR star, and a few other things. You might hear a few other stories of things that he's raced. We'll just continue on with a little bit of NASCAR stuff at the minute, Baz. I was just going to say one word: Adelaide.
Yep.
And I'll let you explain to the viewers
Yeah.
exactly what I mean when I ask you that question.
Very different to the Thunderdome because Adelaide was virtually flat track, and as you come off onto turn 4 and come off onto the main straight, it was actually the start of the drag racing thing, so all the liquid that they spray on there, so it was pretty slippery.
Yeah.
But great little track, totally different setup on the car. We had a good run there actually. The first time we went there, we did okay. I think I ended up 4th or something. But the next one was a good one because we got there, but that was the meeting after I got crashed by buyers actually at Calder.
Mm-hmm.
And I fixed the car at Calder. I went there on the Monday, spent the whole week. They loaded the car on a car carrier, took it across. But I didn't have a diff ratio for Adelaide, so I asked for permission to run 3rd gear instead of top gear, which you normally run with the ratio. They said yes, that'd be okay. So
That's because of parts and stuff. I mean, you just didn't have the
I just
budget of had whatever.
I just had one of everything.
Yep.
So I didn't have the gear ratio for Adelaide.
Yep.
I didn't even change springs and shocks, mate. Which was ridiculous. I just ran the same springs and shocks as Calder, which were far higher rating because Adelaide was smaller. We just did what we could. We had one of everything, and even tyres. They ran a different tyre at Adelaide. And I said, well, I'll leave the inners in. When I got the tyres fitted, I said, no, leave the inners in. Which this sort of turned out to be a blessing.
Right.
Believe it or not, mate, it was the first car ever, I think, to go under I think the mark was 26 or 20, I went under.
Mm-hmm.
First car ever to do that. So up until about the last couple of cars, I was on pole, and then Freddie Seary knocked me off by 100th of a second. So I started outside. Second lap, Sydney was there, Paul Zemanick from WA, he was there, so he'll confirm it. But anyway, I started outside front on lap 2, coming off turn 4, someone tagged me, turned me around, so of course I had to go rear of field. So I think it was 16 or 18 cars, and it was a 50 lapper, and we had I think I was more angry than anything, because of what had happened, and I into it, and I passed every car on the outside. I didn't pass one car on the inside, and I ended up with 10 to go. I was in 3rd, and there was a restart, and while we're rolling around I could feel something wrong with the steering.
Right.
I thought, here we go, I got all the way back to 3rd place, and anyway I thought, no, not stop. So I kept going.
Yep.
I held 3rd. I was actually pushing for 2nd, and so I held 3rd. When we got back to the pits, I actually, believe it or not, I got a standing ovation from the crowd because I'd gone round there. I was actually sliding the car through the corners.
Yep.
Dead set, mate. It was
the Speedway experience.
I remember a guy came over to me after and he said, well, you can take the boy out of Speedway, but you can't take the Speedway out of the boy.
Yeah.
So that was quite a compliment, and I think I got the Hard Charger award. And we went back to the pits, and then I realised what the problem was with the steering. I had a flat right front tyre. But what happened? What was a blessing, because I'd said leave the inner tyre in there, it actually probably maintained, it normally runs 60, 65 pound on the front. It was probably only about 15 or 20, but I was able to keep going.
That was enough.
So and then when we went to the trophy presentation, Bob Jane got up and did the presentations, and his exact words were, mate, he said, I'd like to present this trophy the man with the biggest set of balls in Australia. he said, you just don't normally pass on the outside in NASCAR.
Yeah, and you did it with him.
And I did. And so that was a great result. So I think next time we went over, which 91, 92, when I had Castrol as a sponsor, that was when we were running or leading the points championship with George Elliott. We're both even. And we went to Adelaide, and I think I qualified about 5th or 7th or something. And we got going, and after about 7 or 8 laps I got the black flag and pulled in, well, the back of the car was on fire.
Right,
and
okay.
What had happened, a wheel cylinder, brake cylinder had come out, and all the fluid was going on the car and caught fire.
Yeah.
When I look back on that later on, that probably cost me a real shot at winning the championship, because there were 17 cars started, which meant I finished 17th, got 17 points, if I'd run in the top 4 or 5, I probably would have enough points to probably be with George or maybe in Pippium.
Yeah.
But having said that, the Service Paradise meeting wasn't a disaster for us because we knew we were going there. We had no idea what we were doing, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Didn't have brakes to pull us up. Yeah, £3,400 a car, you're trying to pull up from what I was told was something like 180 miles an hour we're doing down the straights.
Yeah.
Mate, they just couldn't pull them up. And
Right.
we just finished in the back third of the field because we had no idea. We didn't even know how to set the car up. We had no
Completely different,
It was a fantastic experience. Yeah. We did that service meeting twice. I don't think we improved the next year either, by the way, but we learned a lot because when we went to Iron Park a couple of years later, it was a good field. We ran 6th or 7th, I think. So, yeah, and they were good fields. A lot of road racer guys with that. Yeah, Jim, Richo, Brad Jones, Charlie O'Brien, all those guys, and they were well experienced. They all won Bathurst, you know.
Yeah.
And to run 6th or 7th in that field, we thought was a pretty good achievement at Iron Park.
Yeah.
But road courses were difficult for us because we didn't have the setup for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to Eastern Creek one time, and once again, one diff, one gearbox, one set of tyres, one set of shocks, one set of springs. You know, it's sort of, you go past Richo's crew and they'd have the gearbox out 4 or 5 times in the lead up to the race, just changing gears in the Jericho gearbox because you could change all your ratios in there.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a Jericho gearbox. Yeah, so we always went there, but we just aimed at finishing and doing the best we could each one, and then just trying to get a good average points at the end of the season. That's what we did.
Now, I want to touch on the thing called prize money because in Speedway, it's quite low. Like, let's be, even in today's standards, prize money hasn't really developed with the cars costs and the, you know, all that kind of stuff, and that's political and that's up to them. But even back when you raced, there wasn't a lot of prize money in Speedway. Early on, it was good, and in this probably the mid 80s, 90s, that, you know, by the time you had to work full time and the prize money wasn't great. When you went to NASCAR, how did you find the prize money there?
Well, there was a massive step because the first race I went over in the June and just did half a dozen laps, and because I hadn't bought a car then, Bob reluctantly let me have a few laps, but I sort of just cruised around. I did okay. That was I think I did a 30.4 second lap or something. Excuse me. And anyway, when we went back in the December, that was a Christmas meeting. There was $1 million in money. Bob had put up $1 million.
That's a lot.
Half that was for the, I think the 25, 26 Americans that came over. They all got, I think, 25 grand towards their travel and their expenses. So that was to cover that. But there was 500,000 in prize money.
Right.
That was one we were talking about before, and I went to Bob and said, "Well, I need to run 20."
You get the check. Yep.
Because it was 20 grand to get 20, and we ran 19, so we're pretty happy with that. Started 34th and got 19. I got 20 grand for that.
Yeah.
The next meeting, that was December, about the 19th or 20th, I think. The next meeting was about the second week of January, and I did okay there. It was a local Australian field, probably only about 12 cars, but I qualified pretty good, and I ran third.
Yeah.
And Gricey ran fourth behind me, so I thought, well, that's okay, because he'd been to Charlotte, driven in America, far more experienced I was on asphalt, and picked up 8 grand for third. Went back to the next meeting, ran fourth, picked up another 8 grand. So in the first 3 meetings, I picked up $36,000.
That's not bad. It's not bad, is it?
Didn't pay for it at all, but it certainly made a huge contribution.
Yeah.
And I think I worked it out after I had the big crash that I had. And I was
going to touch on that next section. Okay. So you're right.
I went back and I picked up. I probably averaged between 6.5 and 7.5 grand a meeting in prize money.
Okay.
So yeah, that was pretty good money, and I had a bit of sponsorship. The Sheraton looked after us. Castrol was a money plus product sponsorship for a season. Alan Coleman, who was the director at Bob Jane T-Marts, I think it was, I got 6 tyres per season off them for 1.5, 2 seasons. So that all helped. Yeah. But of course, you know, when you look at what the costs were, it just meant we could be there. And every race we went in, I always talked to my crew and I said, right, what we do, we don't try and qualify pole, because that way you're risking
Everything.
wrecking the car
Yeah.
by trying to get balls out. And the other thing we did, we bought a set of tyres for the meeting plus a couple of spares. So we get one set and a spare set, but we would never use the other set
Yeah.
if we didn't need to. So what I would do all my practice sessions on the last meeting's tyres, then only put a new set on to qualify.
Okay.
So then that
Makes
was
sense.
it. Then but the other teams, most of the top teams, they were there. They
Throwing
had
about
5 or 6. They'd practice, just do the practice sessions on new tyres, 2 or 3 sets of new tyres. Yeah, we couldn't do that. So
Barry being sick in the corner. But.
yeah, that was my choice. I'm not making an excuse. That was my choice. I wanted to do it so badly that I was prepared to do it that way. And mate, we got some pretty good results. So yeah, you've got to be happy with it. We were wrapped in what we achieved in the time we were there. You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about a crash in Speedway where you're unconscious for 5 hours. Speedway's bad enough, as we know, people can get hurt and killed. You're racing NASCAR. You're doing 180, 190 miles an hour down the straight, car spins in front of you. Take us through that crash that nearly killed you.
Yeah, that was February the 14th, 1995. Remember it well.
For all the bad reasons.
I think I qualified from memory about 7th or something like that. And Richo was just in front of me, and Andrew Madecki and about 8 or 10 cars were behind. And anyway, we got going, and Ian Thomas, number 23, he was ducking and dancing in the back. And I got on the radio, and I just said to my people on the road, I said, I'm just going to back out of here a bit. This guy's going to have a lose or something's going to happen. I said, so I'll give him a bit of room so I can manoeuvre. Well, I was right. About 2 laps later, I think Richo got sick and tired of him dancing, so Richo just tapped him.
Yep.
Well, away he went, and he coming off turn 4, and he headed for the grass. Well, I saw it. You saw it plenty of time. I thought, oh, that's okay. He's on the grass. It was night time,
Yep.
so I thought he's going to slide across. And it's quite amazing what goes through your head when these things happen, and I can remember everything I thought.
Yeah.
In leading up to the actual, even the crash, and I'll remember after it. But I saw him go, saw the smoke, then he went onto the grass, and I thought, he's right, I'll just move up. And I looked in the mirror, and I got Andrew was just here on this corner, all the other cars, no one backed off.
Right.
Because he was on the grass. Well, what happened was, I don't know if he tried to fight it or what, but there's a bit of a rule in motor racing in general. If you have a lose or you go, let the car go where it's going.
Okay.
Because if most people know what the car is going to do, they've been racing for a while. So I thought, well, he's right. Well, he didn't. The next thing he's facing at right angles back to the track, and he was moving towards the track. And my exact thought was, I thought, shit, he's going to nail me to the wall there. So I switched, and I went, and then I thought, he stopped.
So you thought, I'm going to go try and go underneath him.
My first thing was to go around, go past. There was plenty of room at that stage, but then when I saw him coming out, and mate, we were doing 270 kilometres an hour. The officials told me that was our speed on that section of the track.
Yep.
So you don't get, that's covering about 85 metres a second, I think.
Yep.
It's pretty close to it anyway. So you don't get a lot of time to change your mind. So I went one way, I changed my mind. There was no change in my mind again.
Yeah, you couldn't go back third time. Yep.
So, and I remember thinking exactly what I thought, I'm going in.
Yep.
And I braked. As I was about to impact, I took my foot off the brake because there's a possibility to snap your leg.
Yep.
And mate, it just went for a while. Then next thing the car was on fire.
Right.
It was oil lines broken. And the first thing I thought, believe it or not, I looked at the car and the bonnet's up here, and I thought, oh, stuff me, now I've got to fix the car. And that's what I said. Anyway.
Typical racer, to be honest.
Well, I had to do most of it
myself. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do it yourself.
But anyway, time changed a lot in that next 20, 30 minutes because what I thought took 2 or 3 seconds, because the next thing I remember was there was a guy at the door screaming, the car's on fire, the car's on fire. Get out, get out. I say, whoa, whoa. I said, settle down. I said, just under the window net. I said, I'll get the belts and the radio fittings and that. But prior to doing that, I thought I'd better let him know, because Cindy always used to wear radios as well.
And Cindy's his lovely wife.
So, of course, I pressed the button to talk to her, but all that came out was a moan and a groan, or just some stupid bloody noise. So,
which is understandable when you hear some of his injuries for later.
So anyway, stepped out of the car. Well, I was legless.
Yeah.
I just collapsed. And I remember them being there, and I just remember on 3 or 4 times I said, "Go and tell Cindy I'm okay."
Yeah.
Well, after a while they said, we've told her. Well, they didn't.
Right.
They hadn't told her.
Okay.
But what they did, they got the tarpaulin and put it right around the whole scene where I was on the ground. Well, of course, that's
Wow.
an indication
Someone
someone
died. Yeah. That was frightening for her and crew. And
I don't remember anything then until I got into the emergency room at the track.
Okay.
Because they put Ian Thomas was unconscious, so they put us both in the ambulance, took us in there, and I remember sort of coming to on the bed or on the bunk or whatever it is, and the doctor, who we all knew because he was the same doctor all the time, and they had this brace around my neck which was just about strangling me to death. And I said to the doctor after a couple of minutes, I said, "Yeah, doctor, can you do me a favour and undo that a bit? Just put a pillow under my head. I hate lying flat." And he said, "Oh, are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." So anyway, about a minute or two, because I cracked all on here and that was bleeding, my lungs had collapsed, and I think I might have cracked my sternum because that was sore for months after.
Yeah.
And but the worst part, I was dying for a pee, but I couldn't pee because the seat belts had crunched.
Oh, you nuggets, yeah.
Crunch strap. And I think that's what it was. Anyway, next thing I hear Cindy yelling. She's outside,
Right.
and it's just trying to stop it because they sent the preacher in. They sent him in.
Oh, for
Yeah.
like your last rites
Yeah.
type deal.
Because
Like,
Cindy's outside.
yeah.
Well, by then she was, and I heard her yelling.
And what was going through your head at the time?
Yeah, well, I heard Cindy yelling, "I'm going in, like this, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought, well, I better look all right here. And
You, you better look alright, even though you got your chin all smashed, you got collapsed lungs,
True
maybe
story.
broken sternum or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I better look alright for my missus.
And
'cause
as
she's
she
coming
walked,
in. What a
as she
champ.
walked in, I went, "Hello."
You must look the treat.
She's crying her eyes
I
out.
bet.
It was bloody awful for her, to be honest with you.
Scary, yeah.
And anyway, I just lay there for a while. But poor old Tomo, he's putting a hissy on and screaming and yelling and carrying on.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's in the bed next to you, in the same room.
On the bunk next to us.
Yep.
Anyway, he starts yelling and screaming and did it 2 or 3 times. And in the end, I said, "Hey, Doc, come here a minute, will you?" And he came over and I said, and Cindy grabbed my arm and she said, "Cut it out." I said, "It's all right." And I said, "What do you want?" I said, "Doc," I said, "I'm hurting like hell here." I said, "But I know there's nothing more you can do for me until they get me to hospital."
Yep.
I said, "Shut him up." Or I said, "I promise you I'll get up and punch him in the gob." Because Cindy squeezing my arm. Anyway, the doc went over and tied that, and the doc just went down, bent down, and screamed at him, "Shut up!" so that was effective. Anyway, they put us in an ambulance, and we're on our way to the hospital, and he starts in the ambulance because we're both in the same ambulance.
Oh, right, yep.
And I don't remember the trip much because I was sort of in and out of consciousness most of the time. Anyway, he starts screaming. Well, of course, they stopped the ambulance on the side of the road, on the freeway, called the freeway, to settle him down. Well, Cindy, and that only a couple of minutes behind, Cindy, Brian Bowl and Tony Southwell, Southie race NASCARs as well.
Yep.
He came into the hospital. And of course, Cindy thinks, "Oh, it's me, I'll let her turn in the car."
Oh.
Ambulance, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got us to the hospital and set us there, and we go into intensive care, and I've got bloody tubes and crap after X-rays and stuff running everywhere. And the doctor saw me. That was by then it's about 4 o'clock in the morning, and he said, "I'll be back later on today." Well, when he came back, I was sitting up. And
Okay.
he said, "I don't believe it." He said, "You're sitting up?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm feeling pretty good actually, except for my arm." Yeah, the first day in intensive care. She says, "Well, this is my first day in intensive care." She says, "How's your pain out of 10? I mean, "Shit, I'm not going to say."
Yeah.
First day, so I said, "Oh, about 4. I was, it wasn't.
You would have been
It was 11 out of 10.
Yeah.
But anyway, she
That'd
says,
be a big
"I've
tough
got to
barrier."
take some blood." And she put a needle in here somewhere. Well, mate, it took about 5 minutes of burrowing around in there, and my arm was black and purple the next day, all up through there.
Yeah.
But I was back at work by Tuesday. Flew back on
Yeah.
Tuesday. Yeah. So yeah, it was sore as hell for
Oh,
a few
really?
weeks. Yeah, took a bit of doing. But that was, as Richard Petty used to say, mate. That was one of them bad days.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, that put my racing on hold for a long time because the car was an absolute wreck, destroyed. It bent everything, broke the gearbox bell housing, broke the extension housing, bent the tail shaft almost into a U, and it bent the diff housing into a big half moon shape, everything coming back.
Yeah.
Some of the bar work inside the car, if you get a flaring tool on a pipe, for brake lines, and you put the little on it, it actually concertinaed the shock. It must have shot back like that. It actually left a furrow around the tube, some of the roll cage. And I went into the steering wheel because I've got the steering wheel there. I've kept it as a memento. And even though statically I was sitting probably 10, 12 inches away from the steering wheel, everything must have stretched and come out. I smashed into the steering wheel. That's what collapsed my lungs, and it bent the steering wheel inside out. And the bar behind the seatbelt's on, it actually bent that as well. So it was a hell of an impact. But lucky, I think, I went in straight. Because when I look back as well on that, Kenny Irwin, Adam Petty, and of course Dale Earnhardt, they all had similar crashes but went in on an angle. And what that creates is so I looked that up and researched it. It's a basal skull fracture which burst millions or hundreds of thousands of little blood vessels, and they were dead almost instantly. I think because I went in straight, not on an angle, it's probably a good thing. If you can think it's a good thing.
Well, hey, you got to take the good with the bad, don't you? So look at it that way. You're here talking to me, so I'm happy about it.
But it was. I remember the doctor came in, the specialist. He come and saw me on the next day. I went in for half a day into the general area of the hospital, and he come and said, "Well, I've got your record here in front of me, all your deal." He said, "Mate," he said, "I've got to tell you that the reason I think you've recovered so quickly is you don't smoke." And you don't drink. He said, but you're smoking especially. He said, you obviously look after yourself. And I said, and here's an irony, the guy next to me was a smoker dying of lung cancer. In the bed next to me. So, but it's all part of the deal, mate. It doesn't stop you doing it. You still get back and do it again. That's what it is. My story's not unique,
No, that's why I love interviewing people, because everyone got their own little thing, but it's unique in your way. But everyone has their different levels of good and bad.
Everyone in Speedway motorsport in general, and people always say to me, "Oh, I wish I could have done that. Race that, race that." I said, "What division do you race?" And they said, "I race a modified sedan." I said, "Is that your limit?" They said, "Well, just mate, achieve what you can of that." I said, "Do it at the level you can achieve."
Some people can't, don't.
Well, I took a lot of risks doing it the way I did in financially. I put me in the noose a couple of times, but I just, I wanted to do it so bad. Other people thought I was a nutcase, but I did it. And I could look back and say, well, and I did it as an independent. I did it and paid for it all myself. I didn't, there was no one else sponsoring me. There was no one else putting the money up. I paid my own airfares. I even paid for some of the crew sometimes. I paid for everything. And I did all the work from bumper to bumper on the car, rebodied 2 cars.
Completely. I was just going to ask you, with the rebuild, obviously you did that yourself. That would have taken, like you said, quite a while doing that. You're running a business and having family and...
you can't do... long hours, Jason. I used to spend a couple of times with all cars. I spent, I think 1 year, the only day I took off was Christmas Day.
Wow.
Because the car got wrecked. That was I think George Elliott, Kim Jane, and another car, and then John Laws hit me at the back, and I spent the whole, because we're racing again in January. That was early middle December, and I never stopped. I come back home, brought the car home, got it in, and never stopped. The only day I took off was Christmas Day. I was working from 7 in the morning till 8 or 9 each night to get the car ready, and no one else was there. I was the only person there. I did that year after year, and that's not just me. That's everyone in Speedway. You talk to the guys, mate. People don't realise what people put into it.
That's right. The dedication and the dedication.
I had a lady come in one day to the workshop, and she said, "Oh, you've got a great life, haven't you?" And I said, "Why's that?" She said, "Oh, you're off racing cars all the time." She said, "I've got horses." She said, "You don't have to go through what we do to get a horse prepared." And I said, "Well, you should come around to the workshop a bit and see the hours I put in." I said, "You might change that." I said, "I appreciate what you do." I said, "But I'll tell you what, it's not just the racing wouldn't be a 20th of what we do. in time. I said, the time and the effort and the energy we put in to just get the car to the track.
Yeah.
I said, then you go out and race for 5 minutes for that.
Yeah. And hey, look, listen, you do it alone in one way, but you can't do it alone in life.
No.
And you have a life partner in Cindy, and who, you know, I've got to meet, and she's a lovely lady. And as I know the story, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you were a promoter at Collie, your brother Alan was at Bunbury.
Yeah.
Bunbury Trophy girls
Yeah.
were the thing. Barry, I believe you go and design what they get to wear, and then he sort of gets hooked up with one of them.
We were at Alan's flat, and Alan was talking about they need a couple of girls to present trophies or be there in outfits. So I said, well, why don't we use Vicky and Cindy? Because Alan was engaged to Vicky at the time, and
Right.
Cindy was my wife at the time, obviously, or still is. And I said, I'll design the outfits. I said, I'll do them like a checkered flag. So you know, we're black, white, black, white. And that was how that came about.
Right.
And I mean, you've got a photo of Cindy. I mean, she'd already had
Yeah,
three
little
children. Well, she'd already had 3 children by then.
Yeah.
Yeah, she came up pretty sharp, I thought. I'll get in trouble for this too, by the way.
Yeah, and I will as well. Don't you worry about that. That's all good. I'm willing to take that.
Yeah, I probably won't get lunch or dinner for a week or 2 after this. Yeah. she doesn't like photos of herself being shown.
That's all right. We'll keep it on the way. There's only about probably 3,000 people that'll see it. Or
I'll cut that bit out when I'm watching it.
yeah, it's fast forward.
But, no, it was good because Alan was a promoter there. Actually, I think in one of the shots, there's Mick Triplett, Cindy, and Alan's in the background. Mate, he's got the best set of mutton chops you've seen around.
The Elvis going on.
Yeah. And there's another. I'm just trying to think of the other guy, but he's got his back to us. I can't remember who it was now. But that would have been 73, 74. Yeah.
So, talking about Cindy and you know, Speedway has, you know, I'm sure all sports do all things that take a lot of time and dedication and money draining and emotional draining and passion and all that take a toll on 2 people normally in a relationship, plus, you know, in a way some of the kids.
Yeah.
But the well, maybe I'll get personal, the divorce rate is quite high in Speedway, or the separation rate and the this and that, and we won't go on too much about it, but how do you guys get through? And you're married for 50 years now?
50.
And just tell me a little bit about how you guys got through all that stuff and come out the other side. Is there a secret to it, or is it?
Mate, ironically, Cindy and I talk about this, and I've got to say, I was a selfish person.
Okay.
And I see that. I didn't see it at the time.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
I raced Speedway,
Absolutely.
and then as the Speedway season was just getting to a finish, I was already training for footy.
Right.
Then I was training for footy, and footy took over the winter. Speedway took over the summer. And I mean, that went on for, like you say, I played footy till I was 45.
Yeah.
Still in Speedway up until, well, I missed a bit of Speedway, but I went into NASCAR. But see, when I went into NASCAR, I only did a couple of meetings on my own. Cindy then came to every meeting.
Yeah.
She came over to every meeting. I think Alan came over with the crew chief for a couple of meetings, 2 or 3 meetings. And then Cindy was coming over.
Okay.
So, but the very first meeting I did, which was the December 88, Cindy's mum was here, critically ill, and she died on January the 3rd, only 2 weeks after that, and Cindy was here, and I remember a phone conversation with Cindy. I rang her from the office I called her, and she said, for God's sake, don't go do anything stupid. She said, I've got enough here as it is. She said, I don't need a phone call to say
you injured or something's happened.
But mate, look, you know, she, I say to Cindy quite often, I realise now how selfish it was. But I've got to say, mate, my mum warned Cindy before we got married. She said, if you think he's going to give up sport,
it's not going to happen.
You're doing
So she knew partly what she was
doing. Told Cindy that. I played indoor cricket. I played every sport going. It didn't matter what it was. Roller skating. That's where we met, actually, roller skating.
Oh, is that right?
That's why I got a big lump on my nose, mate. I broke my nose at roller skating.
You trying to do something to impress her?
No, that was before I met him.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so, but no, and you know, Sydney and I have got a lot that we do. We both love nature.
Okay.
I've got to tell you, last night, we've been here at this house 33 years.
Mm-hmm.
Last night I went outside and I saw something move. It was a beautiful possum.
Mm-hmm.
First one, we've only ever seen one around here before in the whole time.
Okay.
He just sat at the tree there, so Sydney puts food. But we both love nature. We love where we live here because it's got the nature and the trees and birds, and Sydney's out the back there every morning feeding about 10 magpies and kookaburras.
Yep.
So we've got a lot in common on that too. But she's put up with a lot because after that accident, actually Spin Thomason ended up with that car for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, he had it for quite a while, Spin. And then he sold it to Ian Dawson. Dawes raced a bit of country tracks. He's got it at his place, he's restoring it now. And it's not coronavirus, folks, so okay, it's cook here.
Yeah, we're good.
Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, it's all right, I've got it, yeah.
But anyway, when I decided to go back racing at the Thunderdome in '99, I bought the car that Max Stumsey had there, which was bought in for him. And we went to Calder, did some practice, went out, qualified fifth. Hadn't been there for 4.5 years, qualified fifth, so
Wow,
it was pretty good.
awesome.
Anyway, we went back in the garage, and as we hooked up to tow out to the track, because you went through the tunnel and out, Sydney broke down. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, I can't watch. Because this was his first meeting back since the big crash.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I said, why didn't you say something? You know, she said, I knew you wanted to do this so bad. So that illustrates how Cindy let me do this. Anyway, I went to the officials and I said, look, I've qualified fifth. I think there was 18 or 20 cars. I said, do you mind if I start rear field? They said, no, why? Who would want to start rear? And I said, well, Cindy's. Yeah. So she sat with Arthur Bartlett, who was the chaplain.
Yeah.
She sat with him with the whole meeting, and he sat with her for the whole, and I ended up fifth anyway. So, but yeah, that's to show you that it's not easy for the girl. I mean, a lot of a couple of times, good friends of ours, Brian McInerney was one. Barry Graham used to drive for Brian. Well, Barry couldn't race this particular meeting, so Brian jumped in the car. Well, mate, it was the worst thing he ever did. He had a crash, and he's never been the same since. It was sort of 2.5 hours, yeah.
And it happens, it's the sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
Car racing.
Yeah.
Or any,
any
sport, it's got its risks.
And you accept it, you know.
Yeah.
But I nearly killed myself there.
Okay.
Yeah. In a sprint car.
Yes, okay. Well, let's just jump to that. I mean, we can talk about whatever we like. It's when you went, obviously at the Supermodified we crashed when we did that at Clermont.
Yeah.
And then, we'll touch a bit on, I think maybe in the next segment with, Grand Nationals and late models and stuff.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your sprint car deal when you went back.
Well, there was two separate situations here. What happened with one here, I'll go to the first.
Yep.
Spinner Thomason had a 360. Anyway, we had it here in the shed, and he was looking at selling it. So he came up one day, Saturday, and he said, well, we'll try and get it running. So if anyone's interested, so of course I jumped in the thing. We went up and down the driveway a couple of times, it wouldn't fire. So we pushed it around the oval thing we got here.
Yep.
And wouldn't fire. So the other guy that was with us, he squirted all the easy start down the injection.
Yeah.
And I said to Spin, try and push me in a straight line. I had no helmet, no seatbelt. Stupidest thing you could ever do. Everyone take notice of that. Stupidest thing you could ever do.
Don't drive your sit-home children.
Anyway, he
Yeah.
started pushing me again. Well, the thing fired
Okay.
and took off
Right.
because it had a gut full of the start, but the throttle jam.
Wow.
I don't remember, that's the last thing I remember. I got around the corner, and as silly as it sounds, luckily, someone had left a car there a couple of months earlier.
Yeah.
I hit that, and with no seatbelts on, I would crash forward, and I put a big skull thing here, and my knees, but I was unconscious.
Yeah.
Cindy had just walked out with a tray with cups of tea and biscuits. She said it reared up on the back wheels and took off. When it come down, and somehow I got around the corner. Had that car not been there, mate, I doubt that I'd be there, because I would have gone another 50, 80 metres.
Yeah, would have picked up another.
Yeah. Anyway, I woke up in Midland Hospital, and funnily enough, I woke up and there was a clock on the wall. I said, what happened? Cindy says, "You've been in an accident again." So I
He
said,
didn't learn obviously from it either.
I said to her, "You don't have to worry about it anymore." I said, "It's over. I finished."
Yeah.
And she said, "Yeah, I've heard that before." So I said, "Oh, where's Spin?" She said, "I've been waiting outside for 5. I was unconscious for 5 hours."
Another one.
Yeah, and Cindy said, Cindy's a nurse,
Yeah.
and she said, "I've never seen anyone so grey as what you were when I got to the car." She said, "I honestly thought you were dead."
Wow.
And anyway, Spin come in. I said to Spinner, "I said, Spin, you got to do me a favour." He said, "What?" I said, "If I ever try and get another race car and go racing," I said, "I want you to smack me in the gob." So if you watch this, Spinner, I was only joking, mate. He's a pretty good bluer, Spin.
Yeah.
I've seen him go, yeah. He doesn't take a backward step when he gets wound up with it. But yeah, so that was that. And then I know it's got nothing to do with Speedway, but they come in, they put a needle in, because I think I done 14 stitches across my scon here.
Yeah.
And they put the deadener in there. Anyway, come in, he put the needle through. I said, "Shit, mate." I said, "That stuff hasn't worked." He said, "Why?" I said, "I can feel exactly what you're doing." I said, "To say it's painful would be an understatement, because I could feel the needle going through, and then he pulled tight."
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, we'll put some more in." So he got the needle, put some more in, waited about 5 minutes. He said, "I should be right now, exactly the same." I said, "Mate," I said, "it's just not working."
Yeah.
And I said, "How many stitches you got to do?" He said, "Oh, 12 or 14. I said, "Well, do me a favour, will you?" He said, "What?" I said, "Just get it over and done with as quick as you can." So I just sit there like that while he stitched me up.
Oh, really?
I copped it from Cindy
Yeah.
about race cars. I go to my doctor, Manuel Witt in Vic Park. She's been my doctor for quite some time. And I walk in, and because she had to take the stitches out even though they were done in the middle of the hospital, I walked in and I sat down. Of course, she knew I was there. And she said, "Well, before we go any further," she said, "I think I'd better have a talk to you." And I said, "Oh, yeah, what's that?" She said, "You want to watch your grandchildren grow up?" I said, "Yeah, of course I do." She said, "Well, that'll be your last time you get in a race." She said, "You really need to think seriously about it." She said, "You've now been unconscious for several hours 3 times."
Yeah.
And she said, "So I would really strongly advise you not to go and do it." But the urge is there, mate, even at my age, I can tell you. Go down there.
Well, we might wrap up part number 3 right now, and we'll go into part number 4 pretty soon. We'll come back again and chat with Barry, and we'll talk some maybe some development on race cars through the era, maybe some trips across the Nullarbor, and a couple of other things that we'll chuck in on the way. So, into part number 3 with the legendary Barry Blake.